Okay. Recap. Um, yeah, for those who have been with us all 7 weeks, what are you still doing here? Hope it has been as fun for you as it has for me, and that familiar concepts now seem strange, and strange concepts now feel a little bit more familiar. So just for everybody's getting back in the game, quick recap. We began by learning about the biblical and agricultural roots of the Omer offering after the first day of Pesach, as well as the practice of counting 49 days until Shavuot, which we learned was also an agricultural offering and had nothing to do with the revelation at Sinai initially. We then learned how, following the destruction of the temple, the rabbis continued the mitzvah of counting and connected it with that original barley offering by referring to the practice as Sefirat HaOmer. Because remember, the original barley offering that happened the day after Pesach was an Omer of barley. And then there was a separate mitzvah to count the 7 by 7 weeks leading up to Shavuot. The rabbis, after the destruction of the temple and the loss of the agricultural devotional apparatus, collapsed those two mitzvot into what we have now called Sefirat HaOmer. We then learned how the Kabbalists overlaid the map of the Sefirot onto the period of 49 days, turning the purely chronological counting into a journey through the inner dimensions of creation and consciousness. We then began learning about each of the individual Sefirot week by week, beginning with Chesed, the love that loves to love. We then ventured forth into the multi-dimensional terrains of space, time, and soul, present in the poetics of the practice of counting the Omer, wherein we acknowledged the act of counting itself every day as a near, especially in these times, Herculean expression of Gevura necessary to navigate the wilderness of life, leaving markers for oneself along the way, and evolving one's ability to receive and respond to revelation, the destination ahead, perpetually. We then explored the balancing act of Tiferet through the lens of the Akedah, in which Abraham and Yitzhak were both shocked back into an awareness of the gift of life and returned almost forcibly, practically, from their what we defined as a dangerous moth-like over spiritualization at the expense of the tending of creation. We then explored the nuances of Netzach, along with the various paradigms and practices of mourning adhered to during the Omer period through the story of the deaths of Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 students. We also learned about the ways in which one can lose by winning. Then we dove into the depths of Lag BaOmer and explored the redemption of Torah itself through the acknowledgement of the divine light of the other in the stories of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rebbe Meir, in which we saw and focused on the pivotal transition from Rabbi Akiva's first tenure, shall we say, with his huge academy of 24,000 students and his zealous kind of all eggs in one messianic basket backing of the meta-political aspirations of Bar Kokhba and the rebellion against Rome and the disastrous effects of that on many levels, particularly in the loss of his 24,000 students. And then, like we learned about in an expression of sheer Netzach, he did not give up. He started another online Zoom Torah Academy after the loss of 24,000 students, and 5 Shmendriks signed up. They happened to be Shmendrikist order. Through those Shmendriks, the oral Torah was kept alive through the investment and amplification of the importance of the art of conversation, which we equated with the lifeline of oral Torah, and diagnosed the death of Torah as the end of conversation. And we looked at some stories of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Meir, in which they made tikkunim for the kinds of for the kinds of intolerance shown by the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, and we looked at that also in the context of Hod, an acknowledgement, Hod Sheba Hod on Lag BaOmer, the real essence of that being able to acknowledge the other. And then last week, we explored Yesod and the story of Yosef, and the arts of both sexual and societal and energetic tantra, and withholding and releasing and desire, and the paradox of infinite individualities merging while maintaining their distinct and unique entity status as the definition of real love and respect that we are striving for with the rectification of Yesod. Also, we looked at the way in which the Kabbalah, as well as many other mystical traditions around the world, situate the seat of one's bioenergetic energy within the second chakra, or within the Yesod Sefira, and posit that realm of circulation is the foundation of all of the higher order functionings and character traits, as well as having impact upon the status of the fruits that come from that through the lower sphera of Malchut. So we focused and looked at that dynamic a bit, and now we're in the final week, the week of Malchut, and we have wormed our way through the forbidden fruit, and we're coming out on the other side of Malchut. This week, we're going to try something a little bit different. And I'm going to share something that's going to be very condensed and poetic and highly charged symbolically. And then we'll go back and we'll check it out, and we'll investigate a little bit of what's there. But part of what I want to do, just as a brief preface, is we talked early on in the class about how the Sefirot function and why we're focused on the 7 lower Sefirot during the period of the Omer. Why aren't we starting up in the cognitive, intellective realms? Chochmah, Bina, Dat, Chabad, where's all this heady stuff? And we talked about the approach of rectifying, purifying, aligning the behavioral and relational traits of our being, really as a preparation, and really as the way to expand the potentials of the higher order vessels in the intellective sphere of Chochmah, Bina, and Dat, rather than, and many mystical schools say this, there are many, it's not just Kabbalah that says, oh yeah, you have to wait till you're 40 and married to study Kabbalah. There's a lot of mystical schools that say on some level, like, beware, there is danger in them there woods. And I think part of the way the Kabbalah approaches that is by focusing people first and foremost on the 7 behavioral, relational, interactive, characterological, emotional realms, in rather than just like taking the tree from the top down in some linear way and starting way up in Keter and Chochmah and Bina and da 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 da, because it's very easy to get lost up there. And I think possibly reflected in a bit of the story, like we saw with Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 students, before one refines their ability to relate to other, whoever, whatever, wherever, however, whyever that other may be, then super developing the higher spheres at the expense of, or just ignoring the lower relational behavioral sphirot is actually, according to the Rebbe Akiva story, it's actually deadly. It's quite dangerous, and it can have profoundly negative effects on others as well as on oneself. So tonight, because we've wormed our way down from Chesed to Gevura to Tiferet to Netzach to Hod to Yesod and now into Malchut, I want to look at that process a bit. We also talked about at the beginning how Pesach is this kind of like awakening from above and taking of consciousness from the 49th level of impurity, the low shebelow of, the rock bottom, whatever, and kind of like catapulting us with God's outstretched arm and strong hand that can catapult one from, not in a gradual linear fashion, but kind of just like from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. And Seder night is just this kind of like blown out, like, as represented in the Haggadah and the Hallel and the kinds of states of consciousness and perspective that is available to us on Pesach. It's really just like taken out of the muck and like thrust into the crystalline heavens. And yet then we know, as we talked about very early in the class, then we have to trek through the wilderness to get back to Sinai, to get back to that kind of peak perspective. We have to retrace those steps that we skipped over in Pesach when we had the awakening from below, and then which is a technical Kabbalistic terminology, and then the whole period of the Omer is what is called in Kabbalah awakening from below, which is, awakening from above is initiated, acting upon us. Awakening from below is where practice comes in, is where our gradual refinement, moving layer by layer, peeling away and detoxifying and emerging. And it's the work that we can do to grease the wheels of heaven, baby, to lubricate to put WD-40 on the rusty gates of heaven. That's the work of awakening from below. That is the work of Sefirat HaOmer, as well as many other things. But it's where we come in to the equation. And of course, on Shavuot, you have Hashem coming down in a cloud onto the mountain, and you have Moshe coming up. So we get both the like awakening from above and awakening from below meeting in like a perfect kind of Magen David with the infinite moment of revelation in the center. But that's where those two paths merge, because they're both, there's a kind of polarized dialectic. There's awakening from above coming down, and then there's awakening from below lifting us up. And Shavuot and Torah itself, and we talked about this, Torah itself, by spiritualizing the material realm, by seeing the Creator within all of creation, by bringing this path of spirit that's not just spirits in the heavens and far away and all this stuff, but bringing it into the mess of life, which Torah does. That is the merging of the awakening from below and the awakening from above paths. So lowest of the low, highest of the high. Okay, then we're kind of worming our way step by step back down again through the 7 lower sphirot after we've been pulled up super high from Pesach. And then we're actually worming our way back down again, coming down the mountain in order to then come back up. So we got high we had to come down and integrate that peak experience, and then we're going to have another massively psychedelic, synesthetic revelation that echoes for all of eternity. I mean, no big deal. So, in an attempt to just draw out some of that stuff, and if one, I'll just do this, and then we'll go back. It's called No Kingdom, No Crown. Malchut, fruit of Asiya, root of Yesod. You know what? I'm going to start over. I'm going to share this weird thing that we've been using. I know some people say, hey, put it back to your face or whatever, but I want people to look at this. It's much prettier than my face. No kingdom, no crown. Malchut, fruit of Asiya, root of Yesod, Keter of the next Bria. It is all in the making. But what is the climactic act of creation? Kiddush. What happens at this pregnant point in the process, riding the line between creation and curation, consecration? Lower hay to upper hay. Malchut to Bina, daughter to mother, Naaseh v'nishma. Retracing our steps through the wilderness from Chokhmah to Chesed across the abyss. Slavery to Sinai, process of consciousness coming to know itself through the name of another. Chokhmah to Bina, you enter Da'at prematurely, initiating exile. You must channel Chokhmah into Chesed and out through all 6 directions, staying centered. Lower hay opens up into 50 gates of Bina. The final Nun, fish fallen, returns to the upper waters through the portal of wonder. Same tree permitted on Shabbos, encouraged. Fruit back to branch, leaf, trunk, root. Seed of knowledge planted in the field of sacred apples. All rise and reveal the invisible crown of the unknowable moment before flashing back to Chokhmah for the next strike of lightning. We are the angels in the algorithm, the writhing rungs on Jacob's ladder. Down, around, up and down, up, down, and around again. Spherotic soundtrack to a typographical gif of God's unpronounceable name dancing up and down the mountain forever, even now. Yud, Chokhmah, Vav, fed through Yesod, Hey, Malchut, Hey, Bina. 6th of Sivan at Sinai in Torah on Shabbos. Absorbing 6 into 7 creates 8 for eternity, but not yet. Again, again, begin, the end, amen, and then. Okay, that's class. See you later. Okay. So I think I'm gonna bring that back up. Okay, so what are we doing? What's happening here? Basically, what I'm proposing is happening during the Omer process, actually from Pesach to Shavuot, is a specific ordering of the Sefirot. It's a specific way of winding your way through these different points. I think one mistake that people often make when dealing with the Sefirot is that they're linear, meaning they always go the same way, and one thing always leads to the next. You always go from Keter to Chochma to Bina to Chesed to Gevura to Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, or conversely, if you're winding your way back up in this awakening from above, awakening from below paradigm, from Malchut to Yesod to Hod to Netzach, Tiferet, Gevura, Chesed, Bina, Chochma, Ter. I'm going to propose something a little bit different, and I think that the more you can familiarize, as anybody knows, you know, we talked early on about maps in the second class in the series about topography, and once one internalizes a map or a topography, they're able to navigate it a little bit differently than when they're first, oh, this step to this step, and then this, Once you learn and internalize the material, you can really start moving around. These things start moving around. You start moving around within the tree starts moving around within you. Also, people might notice this sphera, da'at, it has broken lines around it. And people have probably heard, oh, there's 10 sphirot. And if you're looking at this thing, you count these and you count that, you notice 11. To quote the Sefer Yetzirah, which we did at the very beginning of the class as well, with the paradigms of space, time, and soul, it says very specifically in the Sefer Yetzirah, it says, there are 10 sphirot, not 11 and not 9, 10. It's like this very kind of like almost OCD feeling statement, but it's just like, but it basically alludes to this Da'at Malchut thing. Of course, Da'at you might recognize from Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge, which is the tree that was eaten from by Adam and Chava in the garden, which caused the fall. And you might also notice if you look at Malchut and you reabsorb Malchut back into the tree, and so you lose Malchut, but then you gain back Da'at, then you have like a perfectly symmetrical crystalline structure, right? It's losing Da'at. It's when knowledge, quote, falls. It's when Da'at falls down to Malchut that you get this kind of non-symmetrical, perfected crystalline structure. So in some sense, part of this process is raising, because you only ever have Da'at or Malchut. And we also learned that Malchut can either be following the embodiment of these sphirot, you know, the above the head, the auratic crown above the head with Keter, right brain, left brain, Chesed, right arm, Gevura, left arm, torso, spine, Tiferet, right leg of Netzach, left leg of Hod, genitalia of Yesod, and then Malchut being the feet down there. Or, if you remember, I said it's characterized as the feet or the mouth. So where would the mouth be? How is this the mouth? If you raise Malchut back up to Da'at, boom, that's, you think about it, right brain, left brain, right arm, left arm. What's in the middle of that? That's the mouth. That's Malchut being raised back up to Da'at, which also would be to say is returning the fruit to the tree. Returning the fruit of knowledge to the tree of life. So what I'm proposing as an alternate structure is, we'll just look at some of the words here, is basically a non-linear traveling through the Sefirot. Rather than going from Chochma to Bina and doing everything up here before you get into the emotional and then behavioral active realms of expression and then into Malchut, meaning you've figured everything out in your head already and then you choose to act. But we know from Torah that some people might do that, but Torah requires something different. And I would say, as somebody with a degree in experiential education, in general, education requires something different. So what is the paradigm that we learn, which is really a practice-oriented paradigm, that we learn about in Torah that is related directly to the acceptance of the Torah. It's the phrase Naaseh v'nishma, which means I will do and then I'll understand. So the whole approach to Torah, the whole approach to revelation, the whole approach to experiential education in general, to experience, to the whole approach, if you believe that you actually can't understand something until you actually experience it, that you can learn about Shabbos a billion times until you practice something on Shabbos, and whatever that may be, I'm not putting it in a box of whatever that needs to be, but until you taste a strawberry, you can hear about how a strawberry tastes for a billion years, and it's never going to amount to the understanding that you experience when you have strawberry juice dripping down your chin and you feel how it feels chewing it in your mouth and then swallowing it, and the aftertaste and how it, and the burp of it. I mean, that's all part of it, and how it makes your skin tingle, and how it feels a cold strawberry on a sunny day. I mean, all of those things, all of those nuances you would never get. It's red, it's kind of squishy, it's really sweet, I mean, there's only so much you can do with the words. You have to eat the words. And so I'll walk us through in this kind of like pedagogic poem that I shared, but essentially what I'm suggesting is to enact Naaseh v'nishma sketched out on this Sefirot. What it is the lightning flash that enters into the void of Chokhmah, which we know, everybody knows that the Kabbalists break the word Chokhmah, wisdom, up into two words, which is Koach Ma, which is the power of what, the strength of what, which is basically something has dropped in your head in an intuitive, inspiring insight flash, and you're just like, whoa, that's that. And instead of then doing the linear thing of going to Bina and then breaking it down and analyzing it and da-da-da-da-da, and then making your little equation, does it all add up? Do I want to do it? Da-da-ba-ba-ba-ba? How does it really work? Before you've ever done anything, you go right from Chesed and you drop down. You go right from Chokhmah and you drop down into Chesed. And then you travel through the 6 lower Sefirot until you find yourself in Malchut. And from Malchut, once you reach the fulfillment of Malchut, which is the 49th day of the Sefirah process, you're catapulted up to Bina. Because what's Malchut? Malchut is, if those are familiar with the 4 worlds of Kabbalah, this is how the Sefirot break down on the 4 worlds. There's the world of Asilut, emanation, Keter, emanation, auratic, crown. It's just the vibe world. You have to be close to get the emanation, and it's ethereal. And then you go into the realm of Bria, or creation, which is often understood as the kind of intellective and cognitive realm. And then you go into the realm of Yetzirah, like our favorite book, Sefer Yetzirah, the world of formation, which is the 6 days of creation. It's gathering and forming and bringing all of those things together. And then Malchut is the world of Asiya, which is the world of action, which is the world of making. Remember, the human race was created la'asot. We were created to make. We weren't created to create. Bria, there's Sefer Yetzirah. Talks about how the world is created through speech and the mysticism of the letters and all of these different things. It's and the letters and speech is this interface between Hashem and us, because we both have this, we share this power in a certain way. That's what on some level makes us B'Tselem Elokim. And Sefer Bria, people might ask, what's Sefer Bria? That's Torah. Bereshit bara. It's Bria, Bria, Bria. Sefer Bria is Torah, okay? Sefer Yetzirah, that's like this weird in-between realm of this strange Kabbalistic stuff. And then there's Asiya, the world of making, the world of doing. So if we follow the equation that we have, that it's na'aseh v'nishma, we will do it, and then we will understand. We get the lightning flash of chokhmah, and we go, koach ma. Wow, this is a intriguing. There's an intriguing question that's been opened within me, or presented to me. The veil has been rent, and I got a view, and I don't know what it is, but whoa, it's something, and it feels right, and I follow it. Where do you follow it? Naseh. If you want to get to Vinishma, hearing and understanding, you have to go through Naseh. So you go through the realm of the 6 Sefirot of formation into the 7th of Asiyah, of action, and it's from Naaseh that you are able to access Vinishma and understanding. And you get catapulted up into the 50 gates, into the 50th gate of Bina. We've gone through the 49 levels of the Sefirot, and the Kabbalists always say we can reach the 49th level. There is a 50th level, and we cannot do that on our own. It has to be revealed and opened up for us. So the 49 levels of the Sefirot kind of encapsulate and epitomize the extent of the work that we can do on our own for awakening from below. But then we get to Sinai, and we get another level opened up for us. So we're catapulted from Malchut, boom, up into Bina, into the 50th gate of understanding, of Bina. But it doesn't end there. I would suggest then, because da'at means knowledge, it also means union, sexual union, even like complete identification and union with, as a metaphor with an idea, complete integration, complete union with the thought form, or the knowledge. And so we go from chokhmah, it drops in, lightning flash, boom, chokhmah, koach ma, through the 6 Sefirot into Malchut, boom, up into the 50th gate of Bina, down again to Da'at, where we've now raised Malchut up to Da'at. The fruit has returned to the tree. And from Da'at, we then kind of beam me up Scotty, and we get an emanation of the crown. And this realm also is known as Radla, which is an acronym for Reish Delo Yada, the head that does not know itself. And that's what the crown sits upon, is like the more you know, the more you don't know kind of consciousness, the head of unknowing, the unknowable head. You get a glimpse of that. And then boom, you drop back into Chokhmah when you get that kind of like panoramic view of the infinite energetic field of reality. It's that moment, that eternal moment of and then boom, it immediately kicks off another lightning flash and some other thought, inspiration, intuition that needs to then be followed again through the process, bringing down into the 6th realms, into Malchut again, into some sort of experience, and that catapults us back into Bina, down to Da'at, up to Keter. And this is the way the serpent winds around the tree. And also just a few other things. We also said, besides the 4 worlds, the 4 letters of God's name also map on to the Sefirot. So the Chokhmah is the Yud, that tiny drop that drops in, that bing, that dose, that's just like, it drops in and it initiates the whole thing. If we want to get really punctilious here, you would say, well, what's Keter? Well, in Kabbalah, there's also a concept of what's called the Kutz Shel Yud, the tip of the tip, the Yud of the Yud. So Yud is Chokhmah. Keter is the Yud of the Yud. Keter is the tip of the Yud. If Yud is the tip of every letter, they say Yud, Yad Elokim Bakol, the hand of God is in everything. You can also understand that there's a Yud in everything. And they say because there's a Yud, you have to make a Yud to write every letter. because once the quill hits the scroll, or the pen hits the paper, you've already made a yud. That's the dot. But so keter, keter is the tip of that tip, the point of that point, the dot of that dot. But for our purposes, the yud is chokhmah. Bina is what's known as the upper hay, what we could also call the upper waters. The sixth lower, and that there's hay equals 5, and there's this whole obsession with the 50 and the 50 gates of Bina and stuff like that. So obviously 50 is a power of 5. Then you go through the 6 lower Sefirot, and of course that's the Yud and Yud, Chochma, upper Hey, Bina, Vav in the 6th lower Sefirot, and Vav equals 6. Vav, it also means and it's a connective function. So connecting the intellective realms to the experiential realms through the emotional, behavioral realms of the 6. And then the lower hay, or the lower waters, is Malchut. So that's important to know also. Chochma Yud, Bina upper hay, Chesed through Yesod Vav, Malchut lower hay, lower waters. The last thing I'll say is that in Sefer Yetzirah, every month has a permutation of the letters of God's name, where they mix and match the letters in different orders and learn out different things from that. The order for the month of Sivan, which is the month that Shavuot happens, and most of the month of most of the week of Malchut falls within Sivan as well, is the order of those letters are exactly like what I'm saying. Yud, Vav, lower hay, upper hay. That's the order of the letter permutation for the month of Sivan. Yud, which directly corresponds to the path through the Sefirot that I just laid out. Yud, Vav, hey, hey. Also, so with that, I'll read the piece again. And it's called No Kingdom, No Crown. Of course, that's K-N-O-W. Ding, 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 ding. No kingdom, no crown. Malchut, fruit of Asiya, root of Yesod, Keter, of the next Bria. It is all in the making. But what is the climactic act of creation? Kiddush. What happens at this pregnant point in the process, riding the line between creation and curation? Consecration. Lower hay to upper hay. Malchut to Bina. Daughter becomes mother. Nase v'nishma. Retracing our steps through the wilderness from Chochmah to Chesed across the abyss. Slavery to Sinai, process of consciousness coming to know itself through the name of an other. If you go straight from Chochmah to Bina, you enter Da'at prematurely, initiating exile. You must channel Chochmah into Chesed and out through all 6 directions, staying centered. Lower hay opens up into 50 gates of Bina. The final Nun, fish fallen, returns to the upper waters through the portal of serpent wonder. The same tree permitted on Shabbos encouraged. Fruit back to branch, leaf, trunk, root, seed of knowledge planted in the field of sacred apples. All rise and reveal the invisible crown of the unknowable moment before flashing back to Chokhmah for the next strike of lightning. We are the angels in the algorithm, the rising rungs on Jacob's ladder. Down, around, up and down, up and down, and around again. Sephirotic soundtrack to a typographical gif of God's unpronounceable name dancing up and down the mountain forever, even now. Yud, Vav, Hey, Hey. 6th of Sivan at Sinai in Torah on Shabbos. Absorbing 6 into 7 creates 8 for eternity, but not yet. Again, again, begin, the end. Amen. And then, okay, as we are wont to do, we will count the night in a supreme act of Gevura during this time where the big joke is that every day feels exactly the same. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is standing still and it's like only Sefirat HaOmer that's moving forward. We are turning that big stone wheel, however infinitesimally. And then one day, it's just rolling again. But we can do what we can do, and that's all we can do. So as the Omer teach us, we do what we can do. We take it to the extent of whatever our capacities are, and we prepare ourselves when something beyond those capacities is presented to us, for us, through us. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kidshanu B'mitzvotav V'tivanu Al Sefirat HaOmer. Hayom Shmona. No. Hayom Shiva Arba'im Yom. Shehem Shisha Shavuot V'chamisha Yamim LaOmer. Hod Sheba Malchut. Or as they say, another way to understand Hod is you better recognize. No kingdom, no crown. God bless. Everybody be well. Stay safe. Stay connected. However, by whatever means necessary. And Naseh v'nishma. What a weird experience we're having. Hopefully it brings us to some higher order of understanding and sensitivity and capacity to manifest light and goodness and justice and righteousness and kindness. God knows the world needs it. Peace.